was a great year for movies this year, considering we didn't really get that much last year, but 2021 was a great year for movies, and so it is time to rank my top 10 best movies of 2021, or really just my favourite 10 of 2021. And at number 10 is Free Guy, and like most people, this movie really surprised me. I thought it was going to be good, I thought it was going to be okay because it's Ryan Reynolds. I did actually wait quite a while till I watched this movie, but once I did, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was such a great movie. It was so funny. I actually did really like the premise of this movie. I like the filmmaking as well, how it so seamlessly switched between like inside this video game world to the real world, because I really like that. I really like how it shows like the people who are playing these avatars. I thought that was really quite cool. It does kind of remind me a little bit of Ready Player One, though the storyline is completely different, but how you're so like immersive within like this video game world. Kind of like where we're going with the metaverse, what's going on with that. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was so funny. Ryan Reynolds was great, but Jodie Comer is the standout for me. I thought Joe Keery was great, and I did think everyone was great in this movie, and I did love all the references, all the cameos. There's like a YouTube streamer, YouTuber gamer who I watched, and he was in this. I thought that was really great. But yeah, this movie was just like a whole bunch of fun, and I didn't think there was anything really wrong or bad with it. I just really loved it overall. And at number 10 is James Bond No Time to Die. This was like a great send-off for James Bond. Daniel Craig is my James Bond. I love him as an actor and I love him as James Bond. He was great in this movie. It's really long, but that's okay because it really like packs a punch with every single scene. It has a lot of like emotional beats. It has like the James Bond humor as well, which I thought was really great, and all like the other cast surrounding him were really great as well. And though I love Daniel Craig as James Bond in this movie, I quite like Ana de Armas. I think that's her name. She is so good in this movie, and she literally is only in it for like 5 to 10 minutes. I really wish there was more of her, and I really wish we can like possibly see her in like the next James Bond series. But yeah, she was great in this, and so that really like bumps this movie up. But I really did enjoy it overall. The action scenes were incredible. The storyline was good as well. The villain is a little underwhelming, but I don't really take in much of like the James Bond villains, and I kind of just take in James Bond himself like going on this like mission style impossible adventure, and yeah, I just really liked it. Number 8 is The Suicide Squad, the one you need to watch if you've watched the other Suicide Squad. Though the other one isn't a great movie, and I did really like some aspects of it, Harley Quinn being the best standout, and she is the same in this movie, but there is a bunch of other standouts as well. Idris Elba, John Cena, Daniela Melchior, who plays Ratcatcher, I think that's her name, and yeah, she was great in this. She was one of the like the best characters for me. I really quite like her, and I really want to see her in other things. This movie was so good compared to like the other ones, and compared to other DC comic movies as well. It really like hones in on its 15 age rating, because there is like blood and gore everywhere, and it's literally one scene where you see like the shark guy, King Shark I think his name is, rip a person apart, and it's kind of like in slow motion, so you see like the body tear apart and like blood kind of like splutter out. But yeah, this movie, though it was like really gory and dark there, it was actually so bright and colourful in other places. This movie is just really fun, and I think it is one of the most like rewatchable DC movies as well, because it's just so fun. The villain is just a massive star, and so you know it's just like a silly movie. And though this movie was like so fun and funny, there's actually some like emotional moments as well, and there are like quite a few bonds in this between certain characters, which is really touching. I really quite liked Bloodshot and Ratcatcher's like little like father-daughter relationship there, and it does kind of follow some of the similar like plot points from the first Suicide Squad. I feel like this one, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, is just trying to erase the old one, and that's okay with me because I really did like this movie. Next at number 7 is Ron's Gone Wrong, a surprise for me and probably a surprise for you. I really liked this movie. I thought all the characters were great, and I thought the animation was great, and I really liked the storyline, but I can't like explain exactly and pinpoint why I love this movie as much as I did. Just since watching it, it's kind of like stuck to me, and I really want to go back and watch it again. I haven't yet this year, but I just really liked it. I really liked the friendship between the main boy and the B-bot, and there is like one emotional beat, one scene which is really similar to Baymax in Big Hero 6, and that's probably why I really like this moment. And it's just like it covers like all ground. It covers the funny like laugh out loud side as well as the really emotional side, and it tells a story of like our harming relationship with social media. And so all these people, they want like a B-bot so they can post their every waking moment on social media, get clicks, get likes, be famous, and like that's pretty much where we're heading down in society now. But I just really liked how it took it in a kind of like a humorous way, showing like it's like kids but also to like the family, like a harming relationship with social media. And it was really nice how it ended, where the boy didn't need to fit in by having a Bebop. He just needed to fit in by being himself, and how like his old friends became new friends again. I just really liked it. And at number 6 is Last Night in Soho. This movie, I didn't even really want to watch it, but my sister wanted to, and she was like, you may like it, it's not really a horror movie, and this doesn't feel like one of the conventional horror movies. It feels like kind of like something itself. This is a kind of horror movie where it's suited better to kind of the ones that I like, where they're more kind of suspenseful, even though there is one scene which is actually so scary and so terrifying. I was literally verbally saying, oh my god, what is happening? It's good I didn't watch it in the cinema. But yeah, this movie really stuck with me because it's just, one, it's set in London, it's set in a place where I frequent sometimes, and so it's really like close to home. Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy, they are the standouts in this movie, and of course I do want to praise Anya Taylor-Joy, but I really do want to praise Thomasin McKenzie because she was great in this. I think before this I'd only seen her in Old and Jojo Rabbit, and so I wasn't really familiar on her that much, but in this she's just so good at kind of like playing this crazy person who people don't really realize why she is crazy, and then how it, like how this movie is filmed in general, where you kind of see like her reflection as the character of Anya Taylor-Joy. It was really great. I just really loved how this movie was filmed, and just it was such a like a really creepy storyline. Like I can't really explain what it is, but she can seamlessly transition between like the present day to the 60s, and then it kind of turns into like kind of this murder mystery with like this plot twist ending as well. And I just really liked how it ended, and I just really liked how she was so good at playing this character. And it also has Matt Smith in it, and he kind of plays the bad guy, and so that was really off-putting for me because I'm used to seeing him as the Doctor, or I was used to seeing him as the Doctor. But I just really did like this movie. It has stuck with me since. I don't think I can ever watch it again and it have the same impact, because it is that pretty much like first time watching experience impact of the like shock ending, surprise moments. You're not really going to get that in a second viewing, but this movie just has stuck with me since watching it. I was so surprised not realizing that I would love it as much as I did, and after it finished I was like, huh, this movie is great. This movie made me feel overwhelmed. There's one scene in particular where this movie just makes me feel like so discomforted and so disgusted to be a woman, but I just thought this was great in portraying that kind of like dark side of the 60s, because most of the other things we get with the 60s are like the glitz and the glam, the glamorous life, but this one kind of follows down that dark alley shady side of the 60s, and I really did like that aspect to this movie, and so that's why this movie has made my top 10. And I would put it higher, but because of that like second viewing factor where it's not going to be as great as the second time, that's why it doesn't make it higher in my list. Next at number 5 is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, another movie which I didn't expect to like as much as I did, because I went in this movie with no expectations, kind of just like the general Marvel expectations, where it's a Marvel movie, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna like it, but I came out absolutely loving this movie, and now I'm one of the people who just need to like update my Twitter feed with Simu Liu's tweets because he's just so funny. But I love him as Shang-Chi. He was great. But then there's another standout in this movie, and that's Awkwafina as Katie. I didn't expect her to come into the MCU, and I didn't expect her to like her in the MCU, because some of her other movies are a hit or miss, but in this it's an absolute hit. It's a hit out of the park, whatever that metaphor is. It was so good, this movie, and I really love superhero movies where the villains and the heroes have a connection, and so it feels that more personal, and so the stakes kind of feel more personal to the superhero but also to like the viewers, because I really like, oh, it's a dad and son going off, they're throwing down, they're fighting off. And I just really liked the dynamic, the family dynamic, as well as the friendship dynamic in this. And she kind of gets like her superhero moment as well in the third act. And the third act is one of the best MCU third acts I've ever seen, because big act fighting can just be so ridiculous. And this one, it did feel a little bit ridiculous when the dragon showed up, because I was like, oh, okay, you just came out of nowhere. But I thought it was really cool how they like utilized the dragon, and then how not just the Mandarin, his father was was using the 10 rings, he himself was using the 10 rings, and I thought that was just really cool how it just looked, because the CGI in this heavily towards the end, but I just really liked it. And next at number 4 is probably one of the best Disney live actions I have seen in a really long time, at least since Maleficent, and that is Cruella. Emma Stone as Cruella. I was like, huh, I don't really know, but then when I was watching it, I was like, why did I have any doubts that she wouldn't be amazing in this role? And I really need to stop doubting Emma Stone in all of these roles, because she's absolutely amazing amazing. She surprises me every single time. I need to stop doubting her because I love her. I love every single movie she's in, and some of her movies are probably some of my favourite movies of all time, and so I really need to stop doubting her. Her as Cruella was absolutely amazing. You just think she can't top Glenn Close. I don't think she comes close to Glenn Close. She just has the mannerisms of Glenn Close's Cruella, as well as the original animated version of Cruella, especially when there's one scene where she's driving, she's all like hunched up. She just embodies this role as Cruella, and this movie in general is so stylistic, so like punk rock. It just looks so cool. And her like duo dynamic scene partner Emma Stone as the Baroness, the two best Emmas in Hollywood, sorry Emma Watson, they were so good together, playing off each other. I love that kind of like boss, employer, spoiler, like mum daughter relationship. Like, it just works so well, and there was like kind of twists in this, and I just liked every single character, and I just loved how it really showed Cruella's passion for fashion, because in the other movies we do see it, we do see this, but then throughout this there's so many like fashion takedowns, takeovers, and she like really like comes out with these magnificent dresses. So I really need to give props to like the costumes and art design in this, because it's just so great. Really great moments for Emma Stone to really shine in this, and as well as Emma Thompson. I just thought it was really great. And before I get to my top 3, the best movies or my favourite movies of 2021, comment down below what your favourite movie is, or what you think is the best movie of 2021, or your top 10. Obviously they're likely to be different than mine because this is just my opinion. And before I do say my top 3, I do want to give some honourable mentions of ones that didn't quite make the cut on my list. And the first one is In the Heights. This is probably one of the best musicals I watched this year, and Anthony Ramos as Usnavi is the standout. He was great, and there's so many other people. The guy who played Benny, just, it was really great, really touching. Next we have Jungle Cruise, and I just really like how they really just pair Dwayne Johnson with Emily Blunt in all these like action comedy movies, and he's just paired with some beautiful women. But Jack Whitehall, he's a standout as well, because I didn't expect him to have as much as a role as he did in this movie, but this movie was just a great like adventure summer comedy movie. It was great. And then my third and final honourable mention is A Boy Called Christmas. So Christmas movie I watched like a week ago or something. It was a really great movie. It quite surprised me. Obviously I watched it because of Maggie Smith, and she was great, and I really liked how they did this where it was kind of like her telling kind of like a bedtime story, or just a story to like these 3 kids, and then it like opens up into like this story world. I really liked how they transitioned between like the actual story and then the telling of the story, and then there is like some parts where they kind of show like the characters as shadows walking across like the wall, and I really like when movies or shows do that. But at number 3 is A Quiet Place Part 2, and I think it's really great when a horror movie can make me actually like it, because I don't like horror movies, but there is kind of like a certain style of horror movies which I do like, and so I did gravitate towards the first A Quiet Place because of the star-studded cast. Of course, John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, and no joke, but now Millicent Simmons is on my radar because she is great in these movies. I just liked how they had these 3 different stories, but they all kind of like merged together as well, so it really does like split up the storytelling throughout this movie, but because of how it's edited, it does seamlessly transition between these 3 stories. And this movie, just as much as the first one, had me hooked. It had the jump scares, the creatures were just as great, and I really liked how they took the knowledge that they found out in the first movie and brought it into the second movie. And possibly, is there going to be a third one or a spin-off series? I don't know which one it is. I love how Millicent Simmons' character had kind of like the leading role in this. I would say she's probably one of the major characters in this movie. This movie, since watching it, has still stuck with me because it was a perfect sequel to the original one. Like, it sets up this world which can just be like brought into loads of different things, because you have this world but you can just throw different characters into it. So I just do really like this series as well as this movie. And my next 2 movies, number 2 and number 1, the best movie of the year, they both work in a similar way where they're both like love letters to the fans, and they both are the movie that we've been waiting for in this series. And so it really does lead up after all these years into these 2 movies which really do like pay off. It's great fan service, and it does like have all like cameos from the original movies, and it just, both of them work in a really good way. But at number 2 for me is Ghostbusters Afterlife. I've just recently gotten to the Ghostbusters fandom, where a couple of months ago I watched the original Ghostbusters for the first time, and you can actually check out my reaction to them up here. And I really loved those movies, and the 2016 one was a little bit of a letdown considering how well these other movies did. Then Ghostbusters Afterlife, the 2021 version, it's like a continuation from the first 2, and the characters in this were amazing. McKenna Grace girl, I have to praise you so much because you were so good in taking on this main role. And she plays Phoebe, which is the granddaughter of Egon, one of the original Ghostbusters, and how they still kind of slipped in Egon in this movie because sadly he has passed away, and so he wasn't one of the Ghostbusters who returned, but the other three did. And I really did like their inclusion in this because with any movie where like you feel like it's going to rely on these cameos from the older movies, this one doesn't, and they do like fit in this story really well, but they don't overshadow anyone else because everyone else is a leading actor in this and they really like bring their A game in this movie. But I really like this movie because the humor is so funny. Phoebe really is just so funny in this, just like the emotional beats as well. There is a really like emotional moment in like the climax of this movie, in the ending. It's great for the fans, but it's also great for new fans because if you aren't, or if you haven't watched like the original Ghostbusters, you can still really like this movie because it kind of like opens up the Ghostbusters world to a new generation, and I really did like that aspect to it because at time it does really have great moments where it can really like, this movie is written for all the fans of the older movies, but then there's also moments where it's like this movie is for new people, and so anyone of any age can really love this movie, and I'm one of those people who really loved this movie, and I thought it was going to be my number one. But then the next love letter to the fans is Spider-Man No Way Home, and that is my favourite pick of the year. That's my number one best movie of 2021. And like with Ghostbusters, I had just recently got into the Spider-Man world. That is Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield movies, of course, because previously I had seen Tom Holland's movies when they first came out. But I've recently watched and reacted to the first time to their movies, and you can check out my reactions to them up here. Spider-Man No Way Home was a love letter to Spider-Man fans of all ages, all three trilogies. If you're a fan of Tobey or Andrew or Tom Holland, you're going to get something out of this movie. So this movie is Tom Holland's third and final Spider-Man movie, part of this trilogy, but luckily it has been announced or confirmed that he's getting a second trilogy, so we still have Tom Holland in the MCU. But this movie brings all five villains from Tobey and Andrew's Spider-Man movies, but not just them, it brings in Charlie Cox, Matt Murdock, Daredevil from the Netflix Daredevil show, as well as Tobey and Andrew through Doctor Strange's portals that opened by Ned, and I just love their inclusion in this. Like with Ghostbusters, where I thought I'd have to worry about their like cameos overshadowing the main people, this one didn't do that. I really liked how they added in Tobey and Andrew and how they worked around Tom Spider-Man, how these three Spider-Mans and Peters work together. It was so funny. It's so many like meme references, it's so many references to the other movies, and not just them being great, the three Spider-Men working together, they had some really great moments, some really funny moments, but the villains as well. And I do need to talk about Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin because he was so good in this. From all the other Spider-Man movies, he was probably one of the best villains. I really did like Doc Ock, but I really did like Green Goblin from Spider-Man 2, but he really brings his A game in this. Willem Dafoe is so scary in this movie. He really harms Peter, and there are so many emotional moments in this, whether the emotions are from sadness and I'm crying, or I'm just loving this movie so much that I'm laughing and smiling throughout this whole movie. And this movie, Spider-Man No Way Home, has actually made it at the top of all my other lists I've made this year, whether that was me ranking all the Spider-Man movies, or all the movies and shows we got from the MCU this year. And I didn't want it to be my number one here, but it just has to be because it takes everything great, it takes all the best parts of all the other 7 Spider-Man movies and throws it into one Spider-Man movie, and so it just has to be my best. The payoff towards the end of the movie is so great and so grand that I just need to see all these villains again, and I just need to see all of these Spider-Mans again together because all these actors were so great. And there is one moment in particular where Tobey Spider-Man is talking to Andrew Spider-Man. He's like, "You're amazing," and he repeats it 3 times, and I feel like Andrew really needs to hear that because this movie, though great for people who are watching it and people who love these characters, it's also great for the actors because like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man started it all. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man got so much shit, but he absolutely loves the character. And then Tom Holland's Spider-Man finally got the Spider-Man movie that he needed, where he felt like a Spider-Man and not a Spider-Boy or Iron Man Jr. He felt like he's on his own now, but he feels he is his own as well. If you want to know any of my thoughts on all these other movies, I've made reviews or reactions throughout the year, and I'll leave them in links in the descriptions down below so you can check them out. But that is it for my top 10 best movies of 2021. Let me know what your pick of your top 10 are, or just your favorite movie. If you want to know what my most disappointing or worst movies are, you can check that out as well. I'll leave that in the end screen. But that is it for this video. If you liked it, please leave a like and subscribe for more. Like I said, I'm going to have a tier list ranking tomorrow where I rank all 96 movies I watched this year. That is 46 new releases of 2021 and all the other movies that I watched for the first time this year. But thanks for watching. Bye.